How J.K. Rowling rebuilt her life from zero. When you lose everything and the world rejects your work, your brain tells you it is over. But for J.K. Rowling, hitting rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the foundation for an empire. Today, we learn how to weaponize your failures. There is a very specific type of fear that comes when your life falls apart. Maybe you know this feeling. Your bank account is empty. Your relationship ends. Or perhaps you keep applying for jobs, but every door stays closed. You feel exposed. You feel like a failure. Before the world knew the name Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling was a single mother living on government assistance. She was struggling with deep depression. She described herself as the biggest failure she knew. But inside that darkness, she discovered a secret. When you hit the bottom, the worst thing has already happened. The constant anxiety of falling is finally gone because you are already on the floor. And when you are on the floor, there is only one direction left to look: up. She took her pain, sat in a quiet cafe, and wrote a world that saved her life. You might feel like you are at zero right now. You might feel like your English isn't good enough or your dreams are too far away. But your rock bottom is not a cage. It is a starting line. So, before we rebuild your confidence, we must understand why losing everything is actually your greatest advantage. Chapter 1. The freedom of hitting zero. Most people are terrified of losing their safety net. They stay in jobs they hate. They stay in cities that make them sad. They hold on to things that no longer serve them because they are afraid of the drop. But here's the surprising truth about hitting zero. When J.K. Rowling hit rock bottom, she felt a strange sense of freedom. Why? Because her greatest fears had already come true. She was a single mother. She was poor. She was alone. The weight of what if was gone. When you have a comfortable life, you are often a prisoner to your own comfort. You don't take risks because you have something to lose. You don't try to speak English with strangers because you are afraid of looking silly in front of your friends. You stay quiet to stay safe. But when you hit zero, you are finally free. Think about that for a moment. If you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. This is a superpower. It forces you to stop pretending. It forces you to stop worrying about what other people think of you. When J.K. Rowling was at her lowest point, she stopped trying to be someone else. She stopped trying to live a normal life that didn't fit her. She realized she only had one thing left: her story. And because she had no other options, she gave that story everything she had. Losing your safety net forces you to fight. It turns "I might do this" into "I must do this." Maybe you feel like you are starting from zero with your English. Maybe you feel like you have wasted years and you still can't speak fluently. You feel like a failure compared to your colleagues. But look at the advantage. You are already at the bottom of the mountain. You don't have to protect a reputation. You don't have to be perfect. You can make mistakes. You can sound broken. You can fail 1,000 times because you are already in the arena. The person who is afraid of falling will never climb high. But the person who has already fallen, they are the most dangerous person in the room. They are the ones who actually reach the top because they are no longer afraid of the floor. So, If your life feels like it is in pieces right now, don't panic. You are not broken. You are simply being stripped of the things that were holding you back. You are being given the freedom to build something real. But once you start building, you will face a new enemy. The word no. Chapter 2. The rejection filter. Most learners believe that a no is a stop sign. When you try to speak English and someone looks confused, you feel rejected. When you apply for a job and they don't call back, you feel small. You think the no means you are not good enough. But here is a perspective that will change your life. A no is not a wall. It is a filter. When J.K. Rowling finished her first book, she didn't just walk into a bookstore and see it on the shelf. She sent her work to publishers. One by one, they sent back letters saying the story was too long. They said children wouldn't like it. They said there was no money in children's books. 12 different publishers looked at the story of Harry Potter and said, no. Think about that. 12 professional editors, people whose entire job is to find great books, completely missed the biggest success in history. They weren't bad people. They were just the wrong people. The 13th publisher gave her a chance. And that 13th yes made history. If J.K. Rowling had stopped at the 5th rejection, or the 10th, or even the 12th, the world would never know her name. She understood that a no simply means not them. It doesn't mean your dream is dead. It just means you haven't found the right door yet. Maybe this has happened to you with your English. You tried to speak in a meeting, and someone interrupted you. Or you took an exam, and the score was lower than you hoped. You felt like the world was telling you to stop. But what if those no's are just cleaning the path? Every person who doesn't understand your English is just a person you weren't meant to connect with today. Every job that rejects you is simply moving you closer to the one that actually fits your skills. When you learn to love the no, you become unstoppable. You stop waiting for permission. You stop asking people for their approval. You realize that you only need one yes to change your entire life. But while you are waiting for that yes, you have a lot of work to do. And most of that work happens when you are alone. It happens when things are still difficult. So, how do you keep going when the world feels cold? You use your tools. You use your words. And sometimes, you use the very language that feels the most difficult to process your pain. Later in this video, I will show you a simple habit that will turn your daily struggles into fuel for your English progress. But first, let's talk about the magic of the pen. Chapter 3. Writing through the darkness. There is a strange reaction in the brain when we feel pain. When you feel sad, or lonely, or like a failure, your thoughts become a messy storm. They circle around your head and make you feel heavy. You feel trapped inside your own mind. J.K. Rowling was trapped in that storm. She was grieving the loss of her mother. She was dealing with a failed marriage. She was raising a child alone in a cold apartment. But she did something very brave. She took those dark feelings and she put them into words. She didn't just write a story. She processed her reality. Think about the dementors in her books, the creatures that suck the soul out of people. She didn't just invent them for a movie. They were a metaphor for her own depression. She took a feeling that was killing her and turned it into a character she could control. This is a secret tool for you, too. You are learning English. Sometimes, English feels like a mountain you cannot climb. You feel frustrated because you cannot express who you really are. You feel like a child when you want to speak like an adult. Here is my challenge for you. Use English to journal about your pain. I know what you are thinking. My English is not good enough to write about deep feelings. But that is exactly why it works. When you write in your native language, your brain moves too fast. Your thoughts are too complex. You get lost in the drama of your own life. But when you write in English, you must slow down. You have to find simple words for big emotions. You have to say, I am sad, I am scared, or I want to be free. This simplicity is a filter. It strips away the noise and leaves only the truth. Maybe you know this moment. You sit down with a piece of paper. You have had a terrible day. You feel like giving up on your English studies. Write it down. In English, today was hard. I made many mistakes. I felt small. But I am still here. When you see those words on paper, they lose their power over you. You are no longer the victim of your feelings. You are the author of your story. By using a second language to process your life, you are doing two things at once. You are healing your mind, and you are building a deep, emotional connection to English. You are no longer just studying a language. You are living in it. But writing alone is not enough. To change your life, you need more than just words. You need a place to work. You need a ritual. And you might be surprised to learn that you don't need a fancy office to build a masterpiece. Chapter 4. The Discipline of the Cafe. Most learners believe they need the perfect conditions to succeed. You think you need a quiet office, a high-speed computer, or a trip to London to finally master English. You tell yourself, I will study when I have more time, or I will practice when I feel more relaxed. But J.K. Rowling didn't have a quiet office. She had a tiny, cold apartment. She had a crying baby who wouldn't sleep. She had no money for heating. So, she didn't wait for the perfect moment. She created a sacred workspace with almost nothing. She would walk until her daughter fell asleep in the stroller. Then, she would go to a local cafe. She would buy one small cup of coffee. Think about that. One cheap cup of coffee was her rent. That coffee bought her 2 hours of office space. It bought her a warm chair and a table. In that noisy, busy cafe, she wrote the world of Harry Potter. She didn't have a laptop. She wrote by hand on scraps of paper. This is the power of a sacred workspace. Maybe you think your life is too busy for English. You have a job. You have kids. You have chores. You feel like there is no room for your dreams. But here is the secret. You don't need a room. You need a ritual. Find your cafe. Maybe it is a corner of the kitchen after everyone is asleep. Maybe it is the bus on your way to work. Maybe it is sitting in your car for 15 minutes before you go inside your house. In that small space, you are not a tired employee. You are not a busy parent. You are an English student. You are a builder. Most people wait for inspiration to strike. But successful people use discipline to create inspiration. J. K. Rowling showed up to that cafe every single day. She didn't wait to feel like writing. She wrote because she had a vision. She wrote because she decided that her story was more important than her comfort. You must decide the same for your English. Stop waiting for the perfect day. The perfect day is a lie. There will always be noise. There will always be bills to pay. There will always be people who need your time. But if you can find 1 hour, or even 30 minutes, and make it sacred, you can change your life. However, there is a danger. When you start building your dream in a small cafe, people will watch you. They will judge you. And if you are not careful, their small minds will kill your big ideas. In a few minutes, I will tell you how to protect your vision from the people who want to keep you small. But first, you must understand who is actually allowed to give you advice. Chapter 5. Protecting the vision. Here is the surprising truth. Most people do not want you to succeed. They don't hate you. They aren't evil people, but they are comfortable. And when they see you trying to change, when they see you studying English at lunch or writing in a cafe, it makes them feel uncomfortable. Your growth reminds them that they are standing still. When K. Rowling was writing her story, she was a failure in the eyes of society. She was a woman with no job, living on the government's money, spending her time writing about magic and wizards. Can you imagine what her neighbors thought? Can you imagine what practical people said to her? Get a real job. Stop wasting your time on fairy tales. Be realistic. If K. Rowling had listened to those people, she would still be sitting in that cold apartment. She would be living a life that someone else chose for her. You must learn this lesson. You cannot let average minds evaluate extraordinary ideas. Think about that for a moment. If you want to be fluent in English, if you want to work for a global company, or if you want to move to a new country, do not ask for advice from people who have never left their hometown. Do not ask for English tips from people who gave up after 1 month. Their reality is not your reality. Maybe you feel this pressure right now. Your friends laugh when you practice your pronunciation. Your family tells you that you are too old to learn a new language. They tell you to be realistic and focus on your current job. But realistic is just another word for average. You are not trying to be average. You are trying to build a bridge to a better life. You must protect your vision like a tiny flame in a storm. Do not show your draft to people who only know how to tear things down. Do not share your big dreams with people who have small hearts. Keep your work quiet. Keep your study hours private. Build your strength in the shadows. The world only deserves to see the finished book. They don't need to see the struggle, the messy notes, or the mistakes. When you finally speak English with confidence, those same people who laughed will say, "You were so lucky." They won't see the hours in the cafe. They won't see the rejection letters. But you will know. So now we know how to protect our dream. But how do we actually start the climb? How do we rise after the world has knocked us down? There is a specific protocol for coming back to life. Chapter 6. The Phoenix Protocol. There is a legendary bird called the phoenix. When it grows old and tired, it does not just fade away. It bursts into flames. It turns into ash. And then, from those very ashes, it rises again, stronger and younger than before. This is the Phoenix Protocol. This is how you rise after a major setback. J. K. Rowling lived this protocol. She didn't just get lucky after her depression. She followed a series of steps to rebuild her life. And you can follow these same steps for your English journey. Step 1. Accept the ash. Stop pretending that you are okay if you are not. If your English is stuck, admit it. If your career is at a dead end, look at it clearly. You cannot rebuild a house if you are still trying to live in the ruins of the old one. Step 2. Find your one thing. When Rowling was at 0, she didn't try to fix everything at once. She didn't try to find a perfect husband, a perfect house, and a perfect job in the same week. She focused on one thing: the story. What is your one thing? Maybe it is just being able to speak for 5 minutes in English without stopping. Maybe it is finishing one book. Focus your energy. Stop trying to learn everything. Just learn the next thing. Step 3. Work in the dark. A seed does not grow in the sun. It grows under the dirt, where no one can see it. For years, Rowling wrote in that cafe. No one knew her name. No one was cheering for her. You must be okay with being invisible for a while. You must be okay with practicing your English alone in your room, with no one to tell you, good job. The growth happens when no one is watching. Step 4. The fail-forward mindset. This is the most important part of the protocol. Most people fail and they go backward. They say, I failed, so I should stop. But people like Rowling fail forward. They use the failure as a lesson. If you forget a word in a conversation, that is not a reason to be ashamed. That is a gift. Now you know exactly which word you need to learn next. You have closed a gap in your knowledge. Think about your last failure in English. Did you stay in the ash? Or did you use that moment to grow a new feather? I want to help you start this process today. Because knowledge without action is just a dream. You need a way to track your rise. In the final part of this video, I am going to give you the specific tools you need to change your mindset. I will give you the prompts that will help you turn your pain into your greatest power. But before we do that, take a deep breath. You are still here. You survived the fire. Now, it is time to fly. Look at your life right now. Maybe you feel like the world is too loud. Maybe you feel like your English is a wall you can never break down. You look at successful people and you think, they are different. They have a talent I don't have. But remember the woman in the cafe. She wasn't a billionaire. She wasn't a celebrity. She was just a mother with a pen and a broken heart. The only difference between J. K. Rowling and the thousands of people who gave up is that she decided to stay in the chair. She decided that her story was worth the struggle. You have a story, too. And you have a voice. Learning English is not just about memorizing words or passing a test. It is about giving that voice the power to reach the world. When you feel like you are at your rock bottom, remember that the floor is solid. It is the only place where you can actually build a foundation. You are not starting over. You are starting with experience. To help you start your rise, I want you to use these fail-forward mindset journal prompts. Take a piece of paper right now and write your answers in English. What is the biggest no I received this month? And what did it teach me? If I had no fear of looking stupid, what is the first thing I would say in English? What is one small victory I had today that proves I am moving forward? Don't worry about the grammar. Don't worry about being perfect. Just be honest. You have the power to turn your rejection into a superpower. You have the power to rise from the ash. If this lesson helped you see your journey differently, subscribe to Study English TV. We are here to help you grow, not just as a student, but as a person. I want to see your commitment. Go to the comments right now and write, "I will build my world today." Every time you write those words, you are telling your brain that the rock bottom is over. Thank you for watching. Keep writing, keep speaking, and never, ever let an average mind tell you how far you can go. I will see you in the next lesson.